Good morning, everybody. You are currently listening to a Tall Girls podcast hosted by a tall girl named India. As you can probably tell by the title of today's podcast episode, I will be giving a story time. Now, I haven't done one of these in a while, which kind of shocks me because I have so many weird stories especially ones revolving around my height. Well, does this revolve around my height? I mean it does technically, yes and no. My height, somebody else's height, whatever. Anyways, I actually asked my followers in a poll on my Instagram story. By the way, if you guys who are listening do not follow me, you totally should, at a Tall Girls Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. But anyways, back to the poll. So the options on the poll were Tall Girl Storytime or Body Confidence Tips. And the Storytime option literally won by a landslide. So here we are. Ask and you shall receive. So let's just get into it. So when I was younger, I used to travel a lot. I think this story took place when I was around 15 or 16. I just remember that I was a sophomore in high school. And it was actually my very first international trip. I usually travel, I would say, within the US territories, because I've also been to different islands before that, but that was, I guess, within America. I don't know, not the best at geography, but it was to Colombia. And that was like the first time I actually considered myself abroad and away from the USA. And my dad's friends, actually invited us there. And they had nieces that were around my age. One was the same age and one was younger. So we figured that'd be perfect. My dad has his friends. I have people around my age. Makes a perfect first international trip for both of us. So anyway, we were having a grand old time. I met the nieces. They were super cool, super nice, and pretty tall, I might add. Well, I would say tall for their country because we were all around the same height for the most part. Yeah, we were all around the same height. But I don't know. I was just living for it. Like, yes, there are people here that are around my height because when I was there, not a lot of people, men or women, not a lot of people were around my height. They were a lot shorter than me, which is not a bad thing, but I don't know. It just felt nice to be surrounded by people who are around my height that weren't my dad. But anyways, so one day, the nieces and I, we were just sitting in a park, talking, chilling, doing whatever. And that's when I noticed that there were some guys that were staring over in our direction. And I wasn't really thinking anything of it because it's not out of the ordinary for me. I'm pretty tall, so I usually get stares like that. Even in America, believe it or not. And America is a melting pot, okay? We know that there are people 7 feet tall there, just like how we know there are people that are 4 feet tall there. It's not crazy to be above or below the average height range there. I don't know why we blow it out of proportion sometimes, but that's a story for another day, I guess. But I was pretty tall, so I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to think too hard about it, but I guess after a while, I noticed that they were staring very intently at us. And I just figured that it was more than just me being tall, if that makes sense. You'll see as the story goes on. But out of the blue, one of the guys actually came up to us and started going off in Spanish. I did not understand a word. I was actually taking French in high school at the time. The last time that I spoke Spanish was in a 6th grade class. It was not good. It was not a good look at that time. So it wasn't a good look during that conversation. And I was lucky to be seated with the nieces that actually were fluent in Spanish because they're from Colombia. And they were just having an entire conversation with him. And I was just like, yeah, I totally agree. Like, awesome. It was super weird for me, but they translated after a while, and they basically told me along the lines of that what he said, which was, from my memory, that his friend thought that I was cute and he wanted my phone number. I was pretty skeptical at first. I actually looked over to the friend just to see what he looked like. I don't know. He gave a friendly wave. And I was like, oh, he doesn't seem like a creep or anything. You know, he smiled, gave a wave. And I'm here thinking, YOLO, like, who knows if I will ever come back to this country and ever see these people again after I leave. So why not? But what I did next was probably the smartest part of this story. Yeah, it gets worse. But I told the niece to give the friend that was talking to us at the moment her number, not mine. I don't know. I think it was because I think Colombia has different phone numbers from the US. So I just think that it would have been super weird. So they have the same phone number type thing out there, then it would have made sense just for them to have each other's numbers. So told her to give him her number, and that's what she did. And then after she gave it to him, he said thank you. That's the only thing I understood and walked away. So fast forward to that night, the friend that was looking over at me and waved at me in the park hit her up. And long story short, he wanted to take me out. Keep in mind, I was a minor at the time, and he looked like he was in his 20s. I mean, I don't blame him because, as you probably have seen in one of my posts, if you follow me on Instagram and Pinterest, people usually think that people who are taller are older than they actually are. So I don't even think that's his fault, because it makes sense. It makes sense to think that I'm older than I actually am, or actually was at the time. But I didn't even think about that. Like, I didn't even think about the fact that he was really about to go. He was really asking a minor out. And I don't know if the country is the same as here where I live, where it could be illegal if there's any type of relations or something along those lines. But I didn't even think about that. And instead of telling the niece to ask how old he was, I told her to ask him how tall he was. Smart, right? Because I was still on that phase way back when, like, oh, I'm not trying to hang unless he's over 6 feet tall. Like, I don't even know if I was okay. Like, I didn't even ask name, age, job, school. How tall are you? I was not okay. I was not okay. And what's even worse was his response. He replied to her that he was 6'3". And did I believe him? Yes, of course I believed him. Of course I believed him. And that makes absolutely no sense, because the average height of a man in Colombia, a Colombian man, I should say, is 5'7". And yes, I really did look that up a few seconds ago. Okay. I did not know that at the time. And it probably would have helped. It probably would have helped steer me in a better path. But whatever. Anyways, I was like, bet, he's 6'3", super cool. And I couldn't see like his height from where he was, because he was all the way on the other side of the park, and he was standing behind some podium thing, so I couldn't see how long his legs were. I'm embarrassed for myself. Anyways, I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I'm literally a teenage girl in a foreign country, and I don't speak the language, and I'm really about to go out with a random guy that I met the day before. If that isn't a red flag, I don't know what is. But anyways, they set up a time and place, and the next day in the evening, yet another red flag in the evening. The next day in the evening at a store. So fast forward to that day, I was waiting outside the store. First of all, as I'm thinking about this, how did my dad's friends too let us do this? Let me do this? Like, I'm just trying to think it through. How did this happen without any adult consent? You know what? I'm not even going to question it because I don't want to get in trouble. But so fast forward to that, I was just outside the store doing whatever, and then I saw a short person coming up to me, a short guy, and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, maybe he's just gonna go inside the store, do his thing, yada yada yada. But then he came up to me and was like, "Hola, chiquita." Oh my god, I really should have made a U-turn and ran after that, because what? I'm looking at this man like, are you aware that you are probably half my size? And what's even worse, that's when I realized that I was staring at the guy, looking at the guy from the park that asked his friend to ask for my number. This man was literally not taller than 5'5". He really lied about his height, and I fell for that. That was terrible. And he tries talking to me in Spanish, and I did literally what every or any American would do. I was like, no comprende. And I really should have walked away at that moment. I'm going to keep saying that. I really should have walked away at that moment. But he grabs my arm, and he was very strong for a short man, okay? He grabs my arm and starts leading me somewhere. And I was like thinking, oh, he probably wants to take me to a place that he was talking about in Spanish, but I didn't understand him. So I guess he figured that he would just lead me there. So we're literally walking away from civilization. When I tell you away from civilization, like behind alleyways, in the back streets, near dumpsters. Like if I had my phone, I did have my phone. If I looked at my phone at that moment, I should say, I would have probably had absolutely no service, because it was that far away from civilization. No telephone poles. It looked like we were about to go into a forest. Well, not really a forest. It was just like a back alleyway that probably even led to a forest. That's crazy. And I'm just here thinking, where am I going? Like, I'm not understanding this. And then that's when I start getting bad vibes. I get really bad vibes. Like, okay, this random man, super short, I don't know anything about him. He lied to me about my height. Well, his height. Oops. He lied to me about his height, and he's leading me into the back streets of Colombia. Will I make it out alive? I have no clue. That's exactly what I was thinking. Then, even worse, I start seeing out the corner of my eyes, there were shadows. So he was leading me to an alleyway that eventually we made a right turn, and there was a dead end, like nowhere else to turn. Dead end, and I'm seeing shadows of probably at least 2 other male figures surrounding us. Right then and there, I was like, I can't. I yanked my hand so hard from him that I almost fell backwards, and I sprinted. That was the day I was faster than Usain Bolt. I literally was the fastest woman on the planet. I was faster than the fastest man on the planet. I should have been a track star, because I ran so quickly out there. I was like, I am not getting robbed out here at night in a foreign country. That was not the plan. So I ran all the way back to the house that we were staying at, because we were staying at my dad's friend's house. And yeah, I went inside, and the nieces were like, oh my god, like, are you okay? Are you good? What happened? Blah, blah, blah. So I told them the story, and they said that they were so glad that I did that, because there was like talk going around the town, I think, that the pickpocketers were picking back up, and they were starting to rob and jump tourists. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense, because I literally look like a tourist out here. Not only am I tall, like extremely tall, taller than a lot of other people here, I also look very American. Well, not very American. I just don't look like